Why do you see repeated numbers on clocks? You see them because you're ready to wake up to reality. And whether you believe me or not, the reality I come from is that we have a purpose. That purpose is fleshed out before we come to Earth. We're not accidents. Each of us has what I'd call a divine job description, which is encoded in our date of birth and fleshed out by the name we're given and that we carry. So I believe basically we're all meant to be working together. We're basically allocated to soul groups, which we travel with from lifetime to lifetime if you believe in past lives. Very frequently throughout a family tree or even circles of friends I will find very similar numbers, again suggesting that you travel with people over many lifetimes. So people tend to see repeated numbers at certain times in their lives, not all the time. Well, occasionally you'll hear someone who from day dot has, but generally I find it's in episodes or waves, you could say. So classic reasons you might start seeing repeated numbers. Probably the biggest one is that you probably have master numbers in your life path or very prominent in your soul contract. Why would this be important? Because if you've agreed to a master number life path or have a lot of them, it is that responsibility in a way to do twice the work and create twice the reward in this lifetime. So, to be honest, part of you, which I call the soul or the higher self, the invisible part of you, the body's just the visible part of you, will want to keep you on track and will want you to understand that you can't compare yourself to other people. In a way, you are on a different timeline. You are being measured against different criteria, so that self will want to keep you on track. We live in this incredibly electrified society. Everyone's carrying technology, so it's just a very obvious way for spirit to communicate with us. When white feathers and the smell of roses doesn't cut it, numbers do. So basically, people with master numbers tend to see repeated numbers a lot. It's often an invitation for someone to get involved in metaphysics, very specifically numerology. For me, having tested different psychic reading methods, I really enjoy numerology. I'm a scientist by training. I like to get to the foundation of what's going on. Numbers don't change. Palms change, cards change, which is simply a reflection that we have free will, but numbers don't change. So essentially numbers do show us our divine plan. We can make of them what we wish, it's just ingredients, but they don't change. And so I feel like when you work from a place of numerology, you really get to the essence of someone's being. You really cut through the crap. And so, I believe seeing repeated numbers can be that invitation to get involved in numerology and really get to the truth of the matter. Other reasons you might see repeated numbers, you could be very skeptical. This is one of my favorite things. I am someone who's incredibly skeptical. I need a very high burden of proof before I'll believe a new theory. I need to test it and break it for myself a number of times, which can be really good, to be honest, because otherwise, I don't know, it's like, you promote stuff and it's not actually useful. So you might be someone who's extremely skeptical. You don't believe in psychics, you think they're crazy. There's people who are psychic in your family and you think, God, I'm nothing like them. Welcome to the club. And so numbers are good because, numbers in that way, your mind really values them. A lot of our logical systems, such as money, the measuring of time, it's all done in numbers. There's that kind of significance allocated to them. And, sometimes people even get annoyed. They're like, oh, what do you mean I'm just a number in numerology? And I go, well, hate to break it to you, but you're just a number to the government. That's why you have a tax file number. You're just an account number to a bank. So it's nothing to be annoyed about. It's just a very simple way of classifying people, to be honest. And we tend to remember numbers. They are important. So, for example, if you don't think numbers are important, try going to your bank and knocking a few zeros off your mortgage. I don't think, they'll really go for that. And it just shows, numbers are very significant. So when they do come through repeatedly, you get the same numbers over and over again. it's really good for those people who are really working from their left brain. You know, they're really logical, rational. They're like, show me the facts, show me the figures. That's all I'll, base my decisions on. And I'm like, awesome. You will love numerology. The biggest block, to be honest, to numerology is this idea that it's hokey pokey, hocus pocus, fuzzy wuzzy, voodoo woo woo. There's this kind of veil that's being created that all psychic sciences are crap, and that educated, intelligent people wouldn't dare to go near them. And it's just a great way to control people. Because, as a scientist, truly, if you do get evidence, is that you change your mind, right? Otherwise, for me, it's just prejudice and bigotry. The whole point of science is to keep evolving and to keep growing. And for me, my brain eventually grew to love numerology after, initially thinking it was completely dodgy and crap. So yeah, you might be very skeptical. Other reasons you might see repeated numbers. Very, very likely you're at a big turning point in your life. And so one of the really delicious parts of numerology is that, we have these 4 seasons, which I call the 4 pinnacles. We also have personal years. So very frequently, at those 4 seasons, those changes, which you could say for some people it's their quarter life or midlife crisis, they will start to see a lot of signs, including repeated numbers. And that's spirit trying to get through to them, saying, we can help you with this. Because a lot of people are not aware, spirit can't help you unless you ask. So people are like, well, that's a bit useless. But then I say, it's not if you look at why we've come to Earth. For me, we've come to Earth, it's a school. We're here to learn to speak up. So therefore, we're rewarded when we speak up, including rewarded with angelic assistance and miracles. And I know because I've actually proven this to myself. I've had a lot of clients come to me, after starting to ask or literally pray out loud, having miracles appear. Anyway, back to where I was going. So at these major turning points, seasonal changes, very common to see repeated numbers. It's really spirit just saying, look deeper. Are you still on track with your life purpose? It's also a very frequent time I see people for readings. Okay, and there's these personal years as well, which is those 9-year cycles. And so, again, I'll often see people when they enter a very important cycle, or personal year, particularly the transition between their 9 personal year of conclusions and their 1 personal year of beginnings, they'll start to see the numbers. And again, it's just spirit saying, it's okay, it's safe to let go, we're with you, call on us. There's this point when you really get into psychic work where you kind of hit yourself on the head. You hit your head against a wall and go, why didn't someone tell me life could be this easy? And it's all very well for me to say this to you, but as someone who's had this experience so many times, it's very profound. It's that moment where you ask for a miracle, you receive it within a second, and you just go, what was I so worried about? Here I was thinking that I, have to fight the universe, it's difficult, they're making it hard for me, everything, I have to, fight, with my, teeth and claw to get what I want. And to be honest, that is one way of living. It's very stressful and will probably burn you out real quick. But there is a whole nother way of living. That first way, I call it basement living, fight or flight living. There is a whole nother way of living. It's skyscraper living. Understanding that you can change your reality, not only with your thoughts, with your feelings, through changing your environment, the people you're with. You can have skyscraper living. You can have a life where things flow to you actually very easily. When it comes time to make changes, all the resources are provided. But that can only be achieved when you choose to have that reality. So, for people who don't accept their free will, they don't want responsibility or the ability to respond to their needs. They're going to have a hard life, and it's challenging for psychics to watch that. It is like watching, a little kid fall over and over again. It's painful, but for some people, that's how they learn. For most people, really. Anyway, so yeah, you can see repeated numbers when you go through a personal cycle change. Again, something I can often predict. In fact, you'll often see it, for example, around your birthday, because in the system I use, that's really a peak time of transformation. You know, it's around your birthday where you say, oh, what am I going to do for the next year? What have I achieved so far? Okay, are there any other reasons why you might see repeated numbers on clocks? Well, I've covered the major ones. Other ones could be, you know, maybe, just that spirit wanting you to use your psychic powers. Basically them saying, hey, you've got a lot of abilities here. You know, maybe it's time to enroll in some courses. And I promise you, this is not just to sell for myself and psychics. This is really just me being straight down the line with you. You know, it could be time to go to the library, read some books on spiritual development or personal growth. Why else might you see repeated numbers? Oh, look, you know, there's a lot of skeptics, and they're like, oh, you just remember them because they're unusual, because everybody's talking about it, it's fashionable. There's a lot of theories that, yeah, it's just an accident. And you know what I say? That could be true. That could absolutely be true. You should go and test that. Because in the end, you know, my belief in numerology has come from, well, basically thinking it was totally ridiculous to being someone who actually teaches it. So having gone from, you know, zero to whoa, I respect the fact that a lot of people, maybe they will never get into numerology, and their whole lives they'll see those repeated numbers and go, oh, you know, maybe I just haven't had enough sleep. That's okay. But for the people who see those numbers and it actually causes them pain, you know, what I want to say to them is, oh my goodness, there are so many people who want to connect with you right now, spirit and human. You know, you, especially the master numbers, you know, you are part of a group of teachers on this planet. And I'm not just trying to inflate your ego. I'm like, test it and see. You know, follow some of the ideas I give you about repeated numbers, and you'll find you can make them appear more frequently. You can make them disappear. You can make the numbers change. So, yeah, look, there'll be some skeptics. It's true. I was one of them. But all I can say to the skeptics is at least test some of these theories. Otherwise, it's like you'll never know. You know, there'll always be that question in your mind, what if? And I just think, you know, in life, it's like go full throttle. You know, you can always, how do I explain? You can always learn numerology and go back and just say it didn't work for me. That's fine. But yeah, I do find just a blanket, no, can't go there. Sometimes it is frustrating. I guess the only allowance I'd make there, to be honest, I do believe in past and parallel lives. I didn't used to, but there's just been so much evidence within me, within my clients, around me, that they are real. For people who just can't quite grasp that, you could say your family's memories have been passed to you. That could be past life stuff. And yeah, sometimes they need a lot of healing. So, you know, for some people who find any psychic stuff incredibly painful, perhaps something happened to you last time you expressed those abilities. It's pretty common. Even now they try to shut psychics down. You know, even in Queensland it was illegal for me, you know, to be a professional palm reader until the year 2000. So, you know, lucky I was born when I was. I came in after that law had been rescinded. So yeah, some people, they just can't go to psychic work in this lifetime or right now. It's just too painful. For those people, I'd say that's cool. If you ever want to change that, there's a lot of beautiful energy healing we could do. Meditations, you know, some of this stuff you pay for, some of this stuff you don't. I'm not pushing any particular commercial bandwagon here. I literally just want to see more people move out of stress and out of that lack of self-confidence into a life where they go, wow, life is really a miracle. Wow, I really want to wake up every day. That's what gets me going. So that's my slightly curly-whirly explanation of repeated numbers on clocks. There's obviously a lot more to this whole numerology business that I can't cover right now, but I hope it gives you an idea of where I'm coming from. And just a warning, it's actually very common that after people talk to me, connect with me, read my website, the numbers get worse. I'm quite serious. It's almost like the angels do marketing on my behalf. But I just can't tell you the number of people You know, I mentioned the 1111, and that's it. The rest of their week, they're seeing 11 number plates, they're getting table 11, their receipts are 1111. And in terms of why that would happen, I promise it's not because I'm starting a cult. I believe it's because something in them, it's like, you need to go there. You know, you need to go study numerology. You need to look into this. It's just like a little flag. It's like part of your soul is just waving a little flag saying, please investigate further. And it's your choice whether you do or not. But I just need to warn you. Okay, till next time. See you later.